You know, one of the biggest shocks of retirement is not always the money. It's actually the routine, the sudden disappearance of structure. The alarm clock no longer matters in quite the same way, does it? The diary looks different, maybe even empty. The meetings stop, the deadlines vanish, and the commute disappears. The familiar rhythm, as I call it, of the week is now gone, isn't it? And while that may sound like freedom, for many people, including myself, it can actually feel strangely unsettling. Because for years, perhaps even decades, your life had what I call a shape. You knew where you had to be. You knew what was expected of you, didn't you? You knew what Monday actually meant, and you certainly knew what Friday meant. You knew that you were in that rhythm. And let's face it, you may have complained now and again, like I did, that you've had a busy time. You may have longed for a slower pace, particularly as you got a little bit older. You may have dreamed of not having to answer all those pesky emails, rush around, clock watch, meet deadlines, or be constantly available at work and home. And then retirement arrives. And suddenly the thing that you thought you wanted can actually feel much more complicated than you actually expected. Because routine does more than organise our day, doesn't it? It gives us lots of things. I learned that it gave us clarity. It gives us momentum. It gives us contact with other people, doesn't it? It gives us a reason to get dressed up, leave the house, make decisions, solve problems, use our skills that we've honed for years and years and years. And as a result, we still feel part of something, don't we? So when the routine actually completely disappears, it can leave a space that feels much bigger than maybe we expected. And this is what many people do not talk about enough. Retirement is often presented as one long holiday. I wish it were. A beautiful golden chapter full of travel, lunches, hobbies, leisure, new friends and freedom. And for some people, perhaps that's what it actually is. And they're very, very lucky, aren't they? But for many women over 60, including myself, if I'm really honest, retirement can bring a very quiet but insidious question. And that question is, what now? Not in a dramatic way, and not necessarily in a crisis way, but in a real human, everyday way. That's certainly how I have experienced it. We ask ourselves questions like, well, what do I do with myself now? I've asked that question many a time recently. What is the shape of my week? Because that structure has kind of gone, the structure that we knew it. And who am I without the work rhythm? Because rhythm gives us momentum, doesn't it? And momentum gives us a great feeling of success, achievement, doing something that's worthy. But then we get to this point, don't we? And I've certainly been there, where we say, well, what actually gives my days meaning? What do I get up for in the mornings? And if you have spent years being busy, capable, needed, productive and organised, I certainly was like that, then suddenly having empty time can feel, how can I say, less like luxury, the luxury that maybe we were expecting when we were still grinding away at work, and actually more like uncertainty. And I don't know about you, but from my own experience, I don't like uncertainty. And I think that goes for many, many women who are 50, 60 and over these days. Because busyness, for all its frustrations, can actually protect us. Busyness can protect us from deeper questions. See, when you're busy, you're not always having time to ask things like, am I happy? Do I actually feel connected? What do I want in my life? What have I actually been putting off? Who am I becoming? What have I been achieving? Retirement actually removes some of the noise. And in the quiet, things can rise to the surface. And these things are not necessarily nice things. They're not things that we would probably want or we might have envisaged when we were 5, 10, 15 years earlier, busy, hassled, frantic, thinking, oh, can't wait to retire and have all this time. Because if we're not very careful, retirement is not a friend. What it can actually really signal are things that maybe we do not want. Loneliness, a great loss of confidence for many, many women over 50, over 60, over 70 and beyond. So loss of confidence, a loss of direction. And if we've had careers and jobs in the past, perhaps over many decades, we thrived, haven't we, on direction and achievement. And suddenly we have a lack of direction. And it's very common for women over 55, 60 and beyond to actually feel and experience what I call a kind of grief. It's grief for an old identity, the identity that you had that you have now had to leave behind. And accompanying that could be fear about money, couldn't it? And worry about becoming invisible, that no one knows who you are anymore. It's much harder to make friends and contacts and so on. So there can be a sense for many women that life has lost its edge. And I want to say this very clearly to you, as I want to stress that I've experienced this myself. If you have felt unsettled after retirement, well, it doesn't mean that you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean that you're being negative. What it does mean is that you are kind of failing. You feel it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are, but you can feel that you're failing at this point in life. But what it actually means in reality, from a positive perspective, is that you are going through a major transition now, aren't you? And major transitions in life need more than a cheerful phrase like, well, enjoy your free time. Why are you moaning? You've had to work for years. Now you've got everything at your fingertips. Because free time, if we really analyse it, is only enjoyable, isn't it, when we actually have some meaning. So when free time is meaningful to us, and free time can give us a rhythm, and free time can have a purpose inside it. Because without that, what I've found is that free time can actually become a bit of a blur. The days can run into each other, can't they? Have you experienced that? And you can start, if you're not careful, you can start drifting. And from my experience in life, drifting at whatever age we are is not a good thing. You can tell yourself, well, I'll do something maybe next week. And then guess what? Yeah, you've guessed it. The next week becomes the next month. And then you go on and then suddenly you realise that you're not really living differently. You're simply existing with fewer appointments, except that they may not be appointments that you want to go to, not work ones, but going to the doctors, chiropractor, dentist. And you see, this is where many people actually get stuck. So they retire from work, but they do not consciously step into a new life. They leave one structure behind, but then sadly they do not create another. And this is especially hard if you are not wealthy. Because we are shown, aren't we, a version of retirement that often looks glamorous, it often looks expensive. So let's think about the line I'm going on now. I'm thinking about women that can afford lots of cruises. I know many that can. Personally, I've never been on a cruise, but I know many women have, and they love it, and they repeat it again and again, despite the cost seems to be tremendously high to me. That's why I've never done it. Holidays, restaurants, home renovations and improvements, a kind of boutique fitness, beautiful hobbies, long lunches, city breaks, new wardrobes. These are all the things, aren't they, that are promoted in the press and amongst maybe our more wealthy friends who can afford to do that weekly, monthly, yearly. And while there is nothing, in my mind, there is nothing wrong with any of that, it can quietly, if we think about it, it can quietly send the message. And the message that it kind of sends to me, I don't know if you can relate to this, is that a good retirement is something that you actually have to purchase. But the sad thing is, what if you cannot spend your way through retirement? Many of us, including myself, been through divorces. That has a huge financial penalty. So we may be in a situation where our budget is more modest than many. What if you have to be careful? What if you are single? What if you're widowed, divorced, renting, you're supporting family, or simply not sitting on a huge pension pot? And from my experience, huge pension pots are much harder to get and access these days, particularly if you're someone like me who has been self-employed and run their own business all their life. So let's ask us a question. Well, does that then actually mean that your retirement has to be dull? Does that mean that your life has to shrink now? And my answer to that is no, absolutely not. Because the real work of retirement is not learning how to fill time with spending, although that might be fun for the first few weeks, but I think even I would get bored with that. It's actually, how can I put it? It's learning how to create a rhythm, how to create meaning, how to create connection, and how to create purpose when we're over 60 and we're retired. And that does not have to be expensive. That's the good news. And I really, really want to impress this upon you. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it does have to be intentional. Otherwise, you're just faffing around and wasting your time, wasting the rest of your life. So you need what I call a new rhythm. And that doesn't mean a rigid timetable that makes us feel like, oh my God, we're going back to a kind of work life again. No. What it is a gentle structure, that's what I mean, that gives the week shape. Something that helps you know where you are in your own life right now. Something that says, this is how I look after myself. This is how I stay connected. This is how I use my mind now that I'm not at work. This is how I contribute. This is how I keep my confidence alive. And this is how I remain visible. Because after 60, routine is not, it really should not, I'm a great believer in this, routine after 60 is not just about filling time, or what do we used to call it, treading water. No. It's about protecting your sense of self. That is so, so super important. So if you're listening to this now and your old routine has disappeared, then please do not panic, but do not drift either. Either of those very opposite kind of momentums are not what you want. What you want to do is you want to start small. And what I do is I create what I call anchors in my week. So you may have, for example, and obviously you can tailor this to what suits you, a walking morning, particularly if you've got friends or maybe dogs around. A coffee with a friend. I have a friend that I met through Boom Boss. In fact, she was one of my very first, I think she was my first paying client on one of my biggest programs when I started the Boom Boss. And all these years later, we stayed in touch. We're not in each other's pockets, but every couple of months we go out for a coffee and cake and a catch up. And it's absolutely wonderful. And we look back to the Boom Boss days and how we were then and where we are now and where we want to be going. And that's fantastic, and it's very cathartic. So I would really recommend that sort of thing to you. What about a library visit? Even if you don't have a local library these days, so many of them sadly are disappearing, you've got a vast library, haven't you, in terms of the internet. What about a class? Go to a class. That's a great way, again, of expanding your social relationships. Volunteer role. I've tried to do that in the past. A creative project. And maybe just a regular phone call to someone who's maybe moved abroad, up north, down south, wherever that you haven't spoken to for a while. And that too can be really healthy, really cathartic. And why not generate a morning ritual? I have a morning ritual because, as some of you may know, I have a horse, and so he has a morning ritual. So his morning ritual becomes my morning ritual, and it's a great way to get out, go into nature, breath of fresh air before you start the rest of the day. So even just a walk around the block or a walk into the countryside can be so, so cathartic, can't it? So yeah, a morning ritual, a movement routine. So again, I do Zumba. I've talked about that on other videos. I think Zumba is a great thing to do, particularly once you get into it. It's not perhaps the easiest thing to learn, first of all. I felt like a complete idiot for the first few weeks that I went. But something like that can be really, really good, and an opportunity, of course, to make new friends as well. A day when you get dressed properly and go somewhere. So I'm not suggesting that you slop around at home, but somewhere where you get dressed up, you have a purpose, even if it's just for a change of scenery. What else? Well, a weekly plan where you decide in advance what will make the week feel meaningful for you. And of course, we all have different things that float our boat. And these things don't have to be glamorous. You can make yourself look glamorous if you'd like to. I'd say that most of these things are not expensive at all, but what they are is meaningful. And we need something meaningful, don't we, in our lives at this age? Because meaningful means busy, and not meaningful means faffing around and not knowing what to do. And that can lead to all sorts of problems like depression, anxiety, loneliness, and so on. And meaningful definitely beats drifting 100%. Your life after work still needs what I call shape. Your week still needs lots of energy. That gives you energy. Your mind still needs stimulation, doesn't it? And your confidence still needs evidence that you're participating in life still. And your spirit still needs something, doesn't it, to look forward to. So retirement does not mean routine no longer matters, but it means that the routine now has to come from you. It's not given to you by your boss, your organization, your family. You can create that in the way that you want. And that's a fabulous thing, isn't it, if you think about it? And that can feel frightening a little bit, maybe at first, but it can also be, if you sit down and think about it, deeply powerful, because for years your routine may have been built around duty, and we can now get rid of that word duty, can't we? We can get rid of the word work. Can't get rid of the word family. And also things like responsibility, other people's needs, other people's deadlines, maybe we can get rid of, and other people's expectations, maybe we can also start to filter out a little bit as well. Because you are now you can decide who you want to be, what you want to do, and when. That's one of the great advantages of being the age that we are. So now you have an opportunity, don't you, to build a routine, and a routine around your values, your well-being, your curiosity, your friendships, your contribution, your joy, what gives you a sense of purpose in life. And all of that, that's not a small thing if you think about it, is it? This is a complete life redesign now that we're 60 and over. So I really want to stress to you that if you're struggling to, if you're struggling with the sudden loss of routine, please know this. It doesn't mean that you're not lazy. It doesn't mean that you're lazy. It means that you're not lazy. You're not lost forever. You're not failing at retirement in some way. What you are doing and evolving is, adapting to a new chapter that nobody properly prepared you for, because no one prepares us properly, do they, for retirement, if you think about it. You do not have to wait, though, for life to happen to you. You, and only you, can really begin to shape it again, if you think about it. So I would really suggest to you today, ask yourself, what are 3 anchors, that I could put into my week? And the 3 anchors would be, one would be for my body, one would be for my mind, and one would be for connection with others. So that might be a walk, it might be a book group, might be a coffee with a friend, or all 3, might be swimming. I used to be a great swimmer. I don't like it so much now, but lots of my friends who literally are now in their 60s and beyond, who haven't really learnt very well to swim, they love it. They absolutely love it. But because I did it competitively, it's not really something that I particularly want to go back to, but it's great exercise for women. So if you haven't learnt to swim yet, that's something that you could obviously take on board, if you pardon the pun. So it could be swimming, it could be learning something online, it could be volunteering, it could be stretching at home, doing exercises. I try that actually upstairs in my bedroom sometimes. It can be writing your thoughts down. It can be joining a local group. Even if it's something that perhaps initially you think, I don't know if that's for me. Well, why not go along and give it a go? If it's not for you, it doesn't matter, does it? So these things are incremental. It doesn't have to be something impressive. It has to be real for you, and it has to be repeatable. There's no point sort of going and joining something once and then thinking, nobody really spoke to me, so I'm not going to go again. And it has to remind you that your life still has a shape. So it has to be something that works for you, because you're not finished just because your old routine has ended. You're not insignificant just because Monday morning looks different to how it used to when you had a job. And you're not invisible because the diary is quieter. You're still here. You are still capable, highly capable, and you are still becoming. In that way, what I mean is you are still developing yourself and your skills and the things that you can achieve and the things that you can pass to others. So you are still significant. Now, if this actually speaks to you, subscribe. Please subscribe and join me here at Sassy Successful After 60 for more honest conversations about identity, confidence, visibility, retirement, and creating a meaningful next chapter after 60. Because retirement is not the end of your significance. It may be the beginning of finally choosing it for yourself. Bye for now.